When I awoke the next day, I tried to shake off the discovery of the previous day and get back to my original task, finding and recruiting members to help me restore the town. The only problem was, I wasn't sure just how many people I could recruit to build the town, since I hadn't even met half of the town's ghostly inhabitants. I wanted to get everyone's approval and help rebuilding it, so that I could get it back to its former glory. A part of me wanted to see the town restored. The other part wanted to see it burned to the ground. After finding out my heritage, I didn't truly know what I wanted. Either way, if I was going to rebuild the town, it wasn't going to rebuild itself, so I needed to get busy. I walked down to the lobby and headed out the door. I had decided the best person to ask about rebuilding the town was Jasper. He had the skills to make a dream a reality, and he knew everybody here. He was the ideal partner in crime I was looking for, so I headed down to the post office to talk with him. When I first opened the door, I expected to find him within, but unfortunately, he wasn't there. Where he was anyone's guess. I let myself in and figured I could wait till he got back. I walked across the old wooden floor as it creaked and protested beneath my weight and headed to the table and chairs in the middle of the room. I sat down in a chair while eyeing a tin that was on the table. The tin was old and rusted in places on the lid. It had painted a scene of a Christmas winter in what looked like somewhere up north, full of snow, sleigh rides, and other winter fun. I picked it up and noticed the faded red border to the tin, and how the paint, even after all these years, still stayed put. They really did make things better way back when. I opened the lid to reveal what was inside. In the tin box was an assortment of various desserts, ranging from cookies to candies. I figured it wouldn't hurt to have one while I was waiting for Jasper to get back. I picked up a slice of what looked to be some sort of pie. I loved pie more than anything, and I took the first bite. It was delicious. I guess it was some sort of cream cheese pie. It had to be the best one I had ever eaten. It was creamy and sweet, but not too sweet, and it had the best flaky crust you could possibly imagine. I enjoyed every last bite. After finishing the pie, I sat back in the chair and waited. It was only a few moments before Jasper came in, walking through the door, tool belt in hand. "Nice to see you made yourself at home," Jasper said as he entered the room. "Well, I figured you would only be a moment or two," I replied, standing from my seat and losing my balance. I felt like my legs weren't working quite right, like they didn't want to support my weight, and Jasper noticed immediately. "Oh, please tell me while you were waiting, you didn't eat the pie," he said, rushing forward trying to keep me from falling. How did you know?" I asked anxiously after hearing the concern in his voice. "That was given to me by the librarian for helping her fix a drawer in her desk," he responded, sitting me back down in the chair. "So, what does that have to do with anything?" I asked, now confused as to why he brought that up. "The librarian is Miss Millie," he stated, looking serious. Oh my God, are you serious? I thought you were supposed to always accept the pie," I said, now beginning to become panicked and annoyed. "Yeah, but you aren't supposed to eat it," he said defensively. I, once again, had completely forgotten a rule. Rule number 5. "So, why are we not supposed to eat it?" "Because if you do, you'll not be able to walk for a while because you'll see things that aren't there, and you'll eventually won't be able to move. She puts a secret ingredient in her pies. Heaven only knows what it is, but it acts as a paralytic and a hallucinogenic." Well, what do I do? Will your elixir work, or does she have one? I asked, trying to remain calm. Nah, you'll just have to go through it. You can rest here, just try not to scream. I don't want anyone thinking I'm hurting you or anything, he said, and picking me up and moving me to the bed in the back of the room. Just try and stay positive. Think happy thoughts. I wanted to respond, but found that I couldn't. All my limbs went limp and dead, and to even hold my head up felt like it took all my strength. I wished he hadn't said the last part. Try not to scream. What did that even mean? Why would I have cause to scream? All these thoughts fought for precedence in my mind. I hoped I would only see good things, but Jasper seemed to know something I didn't. One could only hope for the best outcome. By the time Jasper set me down on the bed, I had gone completely limp. I could still feel everything, I just couldn't move or speak. Hopefully, whatever this was didn't last long. As I lay there, I began to feel something crawling up my leg. No, at least a dozen tiny things crawling. I looked down and saw what it was. They were bugs, hundreds of them, coming out of the mattress and skittering up my leg. I wanted to kick them off, to swat at them or something, but couldn't. I then wanted to yell out or scream. This must have been what Jasper meant, but I couldn't find it in me to do that either. I just hoped the bugs didn't start to bite. Soon enough, they had all escaped, leaving me feeling raw, violated, and in pain. I hoped that would be the extent of things, but I quickly found out I was wrong. As I lay there, I looked to the corner of the room out of the window. My vision was hazy and blurred, but I could see that it was now dark out. I was shocked that so much time had passed. But then, out of the corner of my eye, in the corner of the room towards the ceiling, I noticed a familiar sight. A dark, black figure with a Cheshire cat grin and sharp, elongated yellow teeth. One of the evil spirits had entered the room somehow and was sitting right above me. I began to panic. I didn't know what it planned on doing, but I surely knew it couldn't be good. It crawled along the ceiling till it was directly below the edge of the bed. It then dropped down from the ceiling to the floor, where I lost sight of it for a moment. Soon I saw its hands slowly creep up to the top of the wrought iron foot of the bed and grip the metal, carefully and thoughtfully, one finger at a time. Then, I watched as it began to rise from the foot of the bed, peering through the rungs of the iron frame. It pounced suddenly then as a beast would jump on its prey, on top of the frame, perching there like a bird. It stayed there, silently watching me as if it was waiting for something. It slowly cocked its head to the side, farther than any normal human could, and its grin widened even more, reaching ear to ear. It grabbed my foot and started to crawl on top of me. The weight of it felt like an elephant, crushing me and causing me to lose my breath. It was right above me now, as smiling as it ever did, and it leaned in real close. "What is your name?" it asked, staring holes straight through me to my soul. I didn't answer. "What is your name?" it asked this time, more menacingly and more demandingly. Still, I didn't answer it. It began to cut my face with its long fingernails with each and every word. "What is your name?" I still wouldn't answer him, though I wanted to from fear and pain, but something in my gut was telling me not to. It became angrier then and slammed the head of the bed crashing against the wall. Far off, I could hear the sound of someone yelling, but I couldn't see who it was. Then my vision blurred from the blood trailing down my eyes, from the 4 long marks that ran down my face from my forehead to my cheek just below my eye, and I felt weary and worn thin. I gave in to the restful sleep that then threatened to take me, and the last thing I saw was the creature spring off me as a bright light flashed in the distance, a voice yelling and the creature growling in response. I woke up not the next day, nor the few days that followed. Instead, I awoke 5 days later, dizzy, and my limbs and head feeling heavy. I noticed then as I opened my eyes that I only had vision in my right one. I couldn't see anything out of my left. I tried to move my arm to feel around my face at what it could possibly be that clouded my vision. And to my surprise and delight, I could once again move. I tried each limb one at a time, feeling each as I did so. All 10 fingers and 10 toes were accounted for. I then reached up to my face to feel my eye, and to my shock there was nothing there except 4 long, painful marks that the creature had left behind. I shot up then in bed, scared because I couldn't see anything. Then I heard a familiar voice behind me. Autumn, it's all right, it's okay, you're safe now. Nothing can hurt you. Just try not to touch it. Why can't I see? What happened to it, and why can't I see out of my left eye? I asked, startled and scared as I felt the fear rush through my limbs. Oh, there was an accident. It's all my fault. I wasn't thinking. I watched you all day to make sure you didn't hurt yourself. I don't know what you were seeing, but whatever it was had you bad. It slowed down after a while, and I thought I could take the time to go lock up the hotel quickly so I could come back to watch over you. The only problem was, I forgot to lock the post door behind me, and one of those things got in. It was on you when I arrived. I yelled at it, but it didn't pay any attention to me. I had to light up a bundle of saves to fight it off before it got you further. Then you slipped into unconsciousness. I had to go get Mr. Hurd to come tend to the wound on your face. He's the town's only doctor, and by the time I got back with him, he said there was little we could do for your eye. I'm afraid you've gone permanently blind in one eye. I'm so sorry, Autumn, he told me, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I sat there for a few moments, letting his words sink in. So, I won't ever see out of it? I'm afraid not. You were extremely lucky, though. It could have taken your soul. The only reason it didn't was probably because you never gave it your name. Names give them power over you somehow. Usually they're very good at getting names out of people, but you couldn't speak. I think it saved your life, he said, backing up and looking me over. You aren't hurt anywhere else, are you? No, I don't think so, I said, feeling my stomach, but not feeling any pain there. I looked back towards Jasper. I want to see my face. I don't know if that's a good idea yet. Just sit still and rest for a minute, he told me, but I got the feeling it wasn't a request. I stayed there a few more minutes as my heartbeat began to slow, and I became calmer. Once I felt the strength return to my body, I slowly stood and made my way over to the only mirror in the building. It was a small mirror, more of an old looking glass than anything. Small though it was just big enough to get a good glimpse of your face through the single broken line that ran through it. I walked over to it and closed my eyes as I stood before it. I bowed my head for a minute, opening my eyes to look at the floor while I summoned the courage to look at myself in the mirror. After standing there for a moment or two, I took a deep breath in and looked up, not ready for what I saw. The first thing I noticed, as always, was my auburn red hair. It looked unkempt and all over the place. I tried to smooth it down a little before I brought my attention to my face. I could see Jasper standing just behind me waiting for me to see it. I turned my attention towards my face then, and that was when I saw it. My face was for the most part spared on the right side, but on the left I looked at 4 long gashes that spanned half of my face, starting at the edge of my eyebrow and going in 4 straight rows to the other edge of it. They were deep and red in color, and I swear if they had been any deeper they would have exposed bone. I then saw my poor eye, once dark, chocolate brown, now a ghostly blue where my iris used to be, the rest all white. I took a sharp breath in when I saw it. Even though I had tried to prepare myself for it, it hadn't worked. But then again, nothing can truly prepare you for something like that. I turned and looked back at Jasper with what I'm sure was an uncertain look on my face. He winced a little and took a step towards me. Before I could say a thing, he wrapped me in an embrace as tears began to fall down my now hideous face. He never let go of me till I was ready, and though he often teased me and could be a little curt sometimes, in that moment I was truly grateful to have him as a friend. After a few moments, I calmed down enough to pull away from him. Feeling sad and defeated, and even though I had slept for 5 days straight, I just wanted to go back to my hotel and rest. So that's what I did. I pulled away from Jasper and turned towards the door. I think he knew what I wanted and took my hand and escorted me back to the hotel. Only once we were there did he let go of me. I'm so sorry, Autumn. I really am. If there is anything I can do, just let me know. I'm right next door if you need me. Don't worry about the hotel. I'll take care of it till you can resume your duties," he said, standing there as he watched me closely. "Thank you," I croaked out of my now hoarse voice. I turned then and went up to my room. Once there, I closed the door behind me. I crawled into bed without worrying about my clothes. I laid there for a long time, thinking about what had happened. Tears began to reform in my eyes as I thought of the image of my face in that mirror. I had hardly recognized myself. I cried myself to sleep in a matter of minutes. The last thought going through my head was how I was going to take revenge on the creature that did this to me, if that was even possible. All I knew for certain in that moment was that I was going to kill it if I ever got the chance. The next morning, I woke up with my face throbbing with every heartbeat. I must have been given something to make the pain bearable the day before. I rose from the bed begrudgingly and headed to the bathroom. As I stumbled in, I tried not to look at my face, but was unsuccessful. It was the first thing I saw in the mirror this time. I took a closer look at it, but unlike before, the cuts didn't quite seem so deep. I imagined once they healed, only the 2 middle ones would scar. Still, that was one too many for me. I never considered myself a vain person, but I found myself terribly upset at the thought of my beauty being marred, and I felt guilty for feeling that way. The lost eyesight was rough. I took a washcloth and began to slowly and carefully clean the wounds. It stung like fire and made the throbbing heartbeat sound stronger. I tried my best to clean up without causing it to bleed again. Thankfully, I was able to finish quickly enough without causing myself any undue pain. I finished with my morning routine, minus the makeup, and continued to get dressed. I put on a regular old baggy t-shirt and a pair of leggings. Nothing fantastical or flashy, but certainly comfortable. Then I headed downstairs. On the lobby's front desk sat a note and 2 pill bottles, one blue, the other red. The note read, "I'm sorry we couldn't save your eye, but I'm glad to know you're feeling hopefully some better. I have left you a blue bottle of pain medication to be taken every 8 hours, and a daily antibiotic in the red bottle. Hopefully, this will prevent infection and help with the pain. Hope to see you soon. Your friend, the Candyman." I quickly grabbed the half-empty glass of water that sat on the front desk and took one of the pills from the blue bottle and one from the red. I swallowed them down with the water and hoped they would kick in soon. I decided that even though I wanted to rebuild the town, that would have to take a back seat for now until Lily came back. Until then, I planned on finding everything I could about the demon creatures that walked the earth at night. I decided the first person I'd talk to was Jasper. If nothing else, she could help point me in the right direction to find out more about the creatures of the night. I got to the post office just in time to see Jasper with his back turned to me, presumably locking the post office door. I supposed he didn't want a repeat of what happened the few days prior. As he finished, he turned around to see me standing at the foot of the stairs. I'd startled him a little. He jumped and clutched his hand to his chest. "Why so jumpy?" I asked. "Well, if you weren't as quiet as a mouse, I would have heard you coming," he responded, beginning to come down the stairs. "You always know when I'm coming around. You've got like a sixth sense or something," I said, eyeing him, looking for any further signs of bewilderment. "Well, I guess things have got me a little on edge and not quite myself," he said, looking down to the ground, his mind elsewhere. "I came to ask you a favor. Well, not a favor, more for information than anything. I'm going to kill that thing that did this to my face," I told him as I pointed it out. "I just need to figure out how." That ain't possible. At least, I don't think it is. Plus, it's way too dangerous." "My mind is made up, Jasper. You're not going to change it. I just need you to tell me all you know about them or where I can find out," I stated defensively. He wasn't going to tell me what to do. He sighed deeply and said, "I guess I can't, can I? Well, if I can't change your mind, then the least I can do is tell you all I know so you don't run off half-cocked and get yourself killed. Come on in and let me get some coffee started for us." Once again, I walked over and sat down at the table where the tin sat still in the middle. My stomach churned with the thought of what I had seen and felt from eating that slice of pie. I waited for Jasper as he prepared the coffee for us. It only took a few moments, and once it was done, he poured 2 cups. Walking over, he sat in one of the cups before me. It was one of those old tin cups, the kind that actually kept the coffee warm for a bit. We sat there in silence for a while, just staring at our cups, both of us lost in thought. After it had cooled some, I took the first sip. Before I could even speak to ask my first question, Jasper blurted out, "I'm so sorry again, Autumn, for what happened. I made such a simple and stupid mistake, and I almost got you killed, and I stopped him right there. "Jasper, it's okay. I know it was an accident. I don't blame you, and I'm certainly not angry with you, so stop apologizing. I know you want to help, and you have. But now I need to get rid of that thing and keep it from hurting anyone else. I'm just hoping there is a way to." He sat there for a minute, letting my words sink in. I just want to make sure you're okay first. I know it has to be hard. Not just looking at yourself, but coming that close to death is enough to scare the bravest person to crumble, and you're so small and, I thought, fragile. I guess I was wrong about you after all," he ended with a slight chuckle. I have to admit, I had to laugh a little too. I had been so mad at him the first time we met when he had unrightfully judged me without knowing me. I had to also admit that this was a new side of me that I hadn't ever seen. I was hoping, however, that it would dissipate once I could get rid of those spirits that walked around at night. Meanwhile, I was going to do my best to find out all I could about them. So, what do you know about those creatures? Lily called them evil spirits that walked the earth due to the atrocities that had happened here. Is that true? As far as I know, that's what they are. There's no reason to believe otherwise. Where they came from is anyone's guess. All I know is that they showed up after the natives cursed the land. They'd only ever come at night, in the dark, never in the light. They hate the light. I don't know if it does anything to them, but they just stay clear of it, he answered, after taking a pretty hefty swig of coffee from his mug. Is there anything that stops them or makes them go away? Do they even have names? I know you said that names were powerful to them, or was that only in relation to people? I further inquired, hoping to learn of their weaknesses. To my knowledge, there ain't nothing that can kill them, if that's what you're asking. But you can fend them off with light and burning sage. They hate the smell of it. It drives them away, and they can only ever enter a room when it's unlocked or you allow them in. He took another gulp of coffee. As far as what they're called, that I don't know. We only ever call them, well, them. I don't know if they even have names, but the best person to probably ask would be your friend Deb. I took a sip from my mug and thought for a minute. I think I may do that, especially since Lily and you both said that they only ever appeared after the curse. It may very well have something to do with it. We both sat there a few minutes longer, finishing our coffee. Once we had finished, I got up to leave, and he stood with me. Autumn, I just want you to know, if you ever need anything, I'll be here. Just don't do anything stupid or too crazy, all right? I won't. You'll probably be the first person I'd tell if I decided to make a move on these things. I may need all the help you can give me before it's over. I left then to head back to the hotel. I figured a call to Deb was in order. I knew she probably knew more about these things than Lily, Jasper, and I combined. Once back at the hotel, I walked over to the phone, picked it up, and dialed her number. It rang several times before it finally rolled over to voicemail. I left a brief message, asking her to call me back on my cell. Then I put the phone back in its place before making the decision to head over to the library to see if there was anything about them there. I got to the library pretty quickly, looking over my shoulder the whole way. I swore I had seen something lurking in the shadows in one of the alleyways, but I was sure those things wouldn't be seen in the light since they had waited till dark to come out. My mind was just playing tricks on me, causing extreme paranoia, that's all. At least, I was hoping that was what it was. I entered the building and walked directly over to the librarian. She looked up from her newest stack of papers and records and gasped when she saw my face and her hand flew to her mouth. She quickly pulled it away to not offend me, and she averted her eyes so as not to stare. I appreciated the gesture, but understood this was probably going to be most people's reactions to seeing my face. It was quite horrific. I couldn't blame her. Once she had calmed down a little, she asked me, how can I help you today? Can you tell me where maybe I can find information on the creatures that walk through the town at night? I answered her. Well, that would be in the non-fiction section, probably upstairs with the town records. Then she added, plus, you may want to take a look at the old caretaker's binders in the cases. They wrote about them all the time. She handed me the key from the drawer, and I took it from her hand. I started to walk away as she stood and said, I'm so sorry about the pie. I turned to look back at her and smiled so as not to offend her. "Don't be. It was the best pie I've ever had, minus the paralysis." She smiled sheepishly as a warm blush began to creep up her face and sat back down. I headed back up the now familiar steps to the record section. It seemed as if I was spending a lot of time here as of late. I poked around at various town newspapers and found very little regarding the creatures there, at least nothing I didn't already know. And so I started looking in the main town records. With no luck there either, I began to open the cabinets and, one by one, looked through the worn pages of each binder, scanning them as I went for any mention of the evil spirits. I hit the jackpot. In the third binder, belonging to Annabelle Lee, about the middle of the way through. In its pages, it documented a conversation between Annabelle and what I assumed had been one of the tribe's members, possibly even one of Deb's ancestors. Here is the section of the written log. October 31st, 1870. Saw another one of those creatures today. That makes 12 this week. They come at night and tap on the windows, calling out in the dark to be let in or muttering or talking in the voices of people we know. They're even becoming bolder, coming out at dusk and hiding in the alleyways. Jasper says to lay low for a few days. He installed locks on all the hotel room doors for added protection in case I forgot to lock the front doors. I can hear them now as I write. They're coming closer to town with each minute that passes. I can't stand the way they look. It took one guy last week when he went to take the trash out after dark, and it got one of the travelers that came to town the other day. I saw the whole thing. The man came to town the other day and he didn't listen when I told him to stay in at night. He said something about stargazing, and I assume he went outside to do this, and that's when I heard him scream. I ran from the front desk to the window. He was there by the alleyway, and one of the creatures had him by the throat. It demanded his name, and he gave it. Then, before my eyes, I saw the creature change into a hideous being out from the shadow it had cloaked itself in. It was a giant man, with gnarled and withered old hands that bent and twisted, turning into great horned hands. Prickles began to emerge from its chest just as hair would, sharp as porcupine quills, and his arms began to grow and bulge, far more muscular than any living human I'd ever seen. Black and white scales began to grow from his arms as well, shimmering and glinting in the moonlight. Its mouth grew ever wider, until its smile ran from one ear to the other, nearly cutting his head in half. Its face began to swell, causing it to become reddened and puffy. His eye large and unblinking. Tusks began to sprout from him as well, becoming long and yellowed as an elephant's would with age, and it pulled out the largest flint knife I'd ever seen, positioning it towards the man, but deciding instead to devour him. He grabbed hold of the man and yanked him in the air. First, he bit into the man's legs up to his waist, chewing and smacking on him. I could hear the bones crunch and break between the creature's teeth as he ground them before swallowing. The next thing I knew, the creature took another bite, and another, the man screaming the whole time until he was completely gone. As I stood there watching, the creature turned then towards the window and looked me dead in the eye and rushed it. I screamed and ran for my room, locking it securely behind me. When I went to the balcony doors, I looked out, but the creature was gone. And the only evidence we had of it ever being there in the first place was a pool of blood that had stained the earth a crimson color. I added 2 rules to the list. Never forget to lock the doors at night. You don't want to let them in. And only take the trash out during daylight hours. Hopefully, this will prevent any more deaths at the hands of those things. I was appalled by the account in Annabelle's red binder. The man didn't even stand a chance against those things. I hoped that I would be better equipped when the time came to face these creatures, and it sounded like there were quite a few of them. I closed the binder and kept looking, but couldn't find a more detailed account than the one from Annabelle's binder. As I was wrapping up and placing everything back where it belonged, my cell began to ring. I pulled it from my pocket and answered it. "Hello?"
"Hey, it's Deb. How are things?"
she said, sounding chipper. I didn't want to blow the wind from her sails, but I also needed to let her know what happened. I had an accident. Long story short, I got attacked by one of the creatures that walks at night or in the dark places where the light can't touch it.
"Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? And are you okay?"
she half yelled. I told her the story, leaving nothing out. Then I told her of what I found in the red binder. She was perplexed by what exactly the creature was. She agreed it was an evil spirit of some sort, but wasn't sure exactly what it could be. She told me that she'd call back after she spoke with her elders and find out what it was, as well as any information that would help me get rid of them. In the meanwhile, it was late afternoon and the summer was coming to a close. The sun fading in the sky earlier than normal, setting it afire, so I decided to head back to the hotel before it fully set. I got home quick as could be, wasting no time watching the birds as they flew into the horizon. As soon as I was inside, I locked the doors behind me. Nothing was going to get in behind me now or ever again if I could help it. I sat behind the desk, beginning to journal in my own red binder. I figured if things like this were going to happen in the town, I might as well write about them and catalog their happenings. I wrote about all that had passed in the days since my employment, leaving no detail out. Once I got up to date, I promised myself to keep it that way. Around the time I finished, the sun had long set and the creatures were on the prowl. My phone began to ring once more and I picked it up and answered it.
"Hey, it's Deb again."
"Hey Deb, so what were you able to learn?" I asked, closing the binder and getting up to put it away.
"You aren't gonna like it, but I have to tell you, especially if you plan on going after one."
"Go on," I told her, sitting back down in my seat. She sighed deeply before she began.
"The creatures are the descendants of the giant cannibal demon, Arasia."
"Who is that?" I said, my interest level growing.
"Arasia is in our old stories. He's exactly as you described. The only problem was he was only ever defeated by the twin war gods, but nothing is ever said about how a human could kill them. After talking with my elders, they all agree that to name the creature is to hold power over him. Nothing more is said on how to kill them, though. Their best advice is to burn sage and other herbs. We'll send you some, so look out for a package, but they recommend not doing anything about it till we can formulate a plan and maybe get some people down there. We were the ones that caused the evil spirits to walk amongst the land. Let us help to get rid of them."
All right, I'll wait and burn sage just like you said. I think Jasper has some, then we'll come up with a plan once you get here," I said, shifting in my seat.
"It's a plan, then. We'll head up tomorrow. See you soon. In autumn? Just be careful, okay?"
"I will. See you soon," I told her as I hung up the phone, ending our talk. The next day I woke bright and early, put on some of my nicer clothes, a blue paisley sundress with purple and teal accents. I skipped the makeup, probably would be till my face completely healed up, and took my pills with a glass of water that was beside my bed. I went to the kitchen to grab a bite of something and then headed downstairs. Right as I was about to unlock the door, I heard a loud knock on the other side. It caused me to jump out of my skin. I guess Jasper wasn't the only one to be a little paranoid. I quickly unlocked the door and opened it wide once I saw who was on the other side. Deb was here, and she brought many friends with her, elders from her village and other strong men as well. They were there to help me with the giant cannibal demons that stalked the town at night. I held the door open as they all piled in the lobby. When she saw my face, she looked sorrowful, but instead of commenting on it, she quickly introduced me to every person, one at a time, for which once again I was grateful for her kindness and consideration towards me. Then she finally got to the last person. He was a tall man, middle-aged with long black hair set in 2 braids along his shoulders, a few silver strands mixed in, and beautiful, ruddy tan skin that had seen much sun in his lifetime. He seemed kind and jovial, but serious when needed. Deb introduced him as one of the wisest elders, Nathaniel Elu. He held his hand out to me and I took it. We shook hands and he said, "I'm happy to finally meet you, Autumn, though I wish it was under better circumstances." "I'm pleased to meet you as well. I know I've asked you here on a dangerous mission, but I can't tell you how happy I am to see all of you," I said, gesturing to the others in the room. "I hope you can enjoy your stay here at the hotel, despite the task at hand, and I look forward to being able to call you all my friends." Once all the pleasantries were out of the way, I was able to check them into the hotel and led them all to their rooms to get comfortable. Once they had gotten settled, we planned on meeting in the sitting room to discuss things. While waiting, I made sure everything looked comfortable and cozy for each of them, and I ran up to the kitchen to grab a few finger foods and beverages out of our magical fridge. I took them downstairs and placed the various finger sandwiches, fruits, and veggie platters on our coffee table in the center of the room, and the various utensils and plates as well. Before long, they came down one or a few at a time. Once they were all gathered in the room, we enjoyed the food and light chatter as we ate. I enjoyed the company for what seemed like the first time in a long time. I looked forward to rebuilding the town, so hopefully I could gather many to the hotel just like they were now. After the food ran low and the talk died down, we got down to business. The first act of business was for me to tell my story and explain all that I knew of the creatures. It was agreed that based on my account, as well as the accounts in the binders from a number of the other old caretakers, that we were in fact talking about the same creature. They found it strange that they only revealed themselves once they knew a person's name, and that they hid in the shadows, but they were able to agree that names were powerful and had some sort of hold on these creatures. We also discussed that we would have to use names against the creatures in some way. That was when Nathaniel asked me a question. "What are all the names you're known as, Autumn?" he asked. "Well, my full name is Autumn Catherine Winters. When I was young, my parents nicknamed me Katie and it stuck. Most everyone called me Katie when I was young. As I got older, I went by Autumn. From time to time, they'd call me Katie Bug, but that's because in the summer of 1996, when I was 4, I loved catching ladybugs and letting them crawl on my arms. Other than that, I can't think of any other names I'm known by," I told him, getting a little more settled in my chair. "Always keep this information to yourself. I fear that even though we are dealing with the giant cannibal demons, we are also dealing with the nameless ones as well," he said as he took a bite of a sandwich. "Who are the nameless ones?" I asked, my curiosity now awakened. "The nameless ones are evil spirits that walk the earth, where a lot of great bloodshed and curses are often given. They are the ones that you hear speaking in the different voices of your loved ones and friends. They tend to stay hidden. Even in the dark, they often don't like being seen, until they are ready to take your soul into the depths of the spirit realm. They are known by many tribes and peoples, and they have many names besides what we call them. Like the giant cannibal demons you spoke of, they can shapeshift into various forms. Once they have you, they take your soul, of course, but they can take other parts of you and use them to take a physical form. I think your townspeople got the two confused long ago and melded them into one entity," Nathaniel said, as he looked at all of us in the room. So, if there are two evil spirits, how do we get rid of them? Is there a way to make them go away and never come back? Can they be killed? I asked, now on the edge of my seat wanting to know more. The nameless ones can be driven away, but there always stands a chance they can come back. But I don't think there is a way to kill them outright. The giant cannibals, though, they can be killed. It is just a matter of how. In order for you to understand what you are up against, I have to tell you the story of how the first one died at the hands of the twin war gods long ago, he replied. The story of Arasia. The cannibal demon was told to me as follows. Long ago, when the forefathers of the tribe lived in the town of the cliffs, there also lived two fair maidens who were sisters and daughters of the same master chief of the tribe. One Sunday morning, the two sisters were talking, and the eldest sister said to the other, "What say you? The morning is bright and the water is warm. Let us go down to the water to wash our clothes to be made as new for the dance later on." The younger sister said to the elder, "Ah, yes. But in these days they say the shadows of the rocks and even the sage bushes lodge unspeakable things, causing those who walk there to breathe hard with fear and terror." "Nonsense," the elder sister exclaimed. "Younger sisters are always as timid as younger brothers are ill-tempered." "Then as you say, elder sister," the younger one replied, "I will not quarrel with you, but I fear to go." "Hush then, younger sister," the elder said. "Come along then." They then gathered their cotton mantles and clothes into bundles, and taking a bag of yucca root, or soapweed as it is also called, and started down together onto the steep, crooked path to where the water was at the foot of the great mesa. Now, far above the town, among the rocks of reddish gray and yellow, red in the form of a boulder-like mountain that appears to look like a frozen sandbank, there was a deep and dark cave. If you've never seen it, to this day it's still called the Cave of Arasia. There, in the times I speak of, lived Arasia himself. Oh, what an ugly demon he was! His body was as large as an elk's, and his breast was shaggy with hair likened to stiff porcupine quills. His legs and arms were long and muscular, and covered with speckled scales both black and white. The hair on his head as coarse and ruffled as a buffalo's mane. His eyes were big and glaring, so much so that they nearly popped from his head like skinned onions. His mouth stretched from one cheek to the other, and his mouth filled with crooked fangs, yellow just as thrown-away deer bones. His lips were red and puffy as peppers, and his face was wrinkled and rough as an expanse of burned buckskin. That was Arasia, who, in the elder days, devoured men and women alike for his meat, and the children of men as a sweetbread. His weapons were terrible to behold. His fingernails were as long as the claws of a bear. In his left hand, he held a bow made of the sapling of a mountain oak, with 2 arrows already drawn for use. And he was never seen without his great flint knife, twice as long as a man's leg and just as broad. He held this in his right hand and poked his hair back with it, so his forelocks were ever covered with the blood of those he slaughtered. He wore over his shoulder whole skins of mountain lion and bear, held together with buttons made of wood. Though Arasia was ugly, he could not speak without chattering his teeth, or laugh without howling like a wolf. He was a very polite demon, but like many ugly and polite people of this world, he was also a great liar. He woke that morning and stuck his head out of his cave, just as the 2 maidens went down to the waters. He saw them while he looked, and he laughed. Then he muttered as he gazed at them, and saw how young and beautiful they were. "A good lunch, too, for a munch." And he howled his war cry, "Hoo, Thalaya!" Till Tesha Minkia, The echo god shouted it out to the fair maidens. "Oh!" exclaimed the girl as she clutched the arm of her elder sister. "Listen!" "Hoo, Thalaya!" roared the demon once more, and again, Teshaminkia.
Elder sister, what did I tell you? Why did we have to come out today?"
said the younger sister. They both ran away, and then they stopped to listen. When heard nothing more, they returned to the water and set about washing their clothes on flat stones. But Arasia grabbed up his weapons and began to climb down the mountainside, laughing as he went. Good lunch, 2 for a munch. Around the corner of the great mesa, on the high shelves that stands the town of the cliffs, are 2 high-towering butts called Twin Mountain. Far up on the top of this mountain there dwelt Ayawara and Matsalema. If you don't know who those 2 were, I'll tell you. They were the twin children of the Sun Father and the Mother Waters of the world. Before men were born into the light of the world, the sun made love to the waters of the world, and under his warm, bright glances, there were, hatched out of a foam cup on the face of the great ocean, which then covered the earth, 2 wonderful boys, whom men afterward named the beloved 2 who fell. The sun dried away the waters from the earth, and these 2 then delivered men forth from the bowels of our earth mother, and guided them eastward toward the home of their father, the sun. The time came when, alas, war and many strange beings arose to destroy the children of the earth. And then the 8 stern beings changed the hearts of the twins to the medicine of war. Thenceforth, they were known as Ayawara and Matsalema, our beloved, the terrible 2, and the boy gods of war. Even though they changed, they still guarded our forefathers and guided them to the middle of the world, where we now live. Gifted with hearts of the medicine of war, and with wisdom almost as great as the Sun Fathers, they became the invincible guardians of the corn people of Earth, and with the rainbow for their weapons and thunderbolts for their arrows. They were swift arrows, lightning shafts painted with turquoise. The twins were the greatest warriors of all in the days of yore. When at last they had conquered most of the enemies of men, they taught to a few of their chosen followers the songs, and prayers, and orders of a society of warriors who should be called their children. The priests of the bow, they were called, and selecting from among them the 2 wisest, and breathed into their nostrils, as they have breathed into the noses of their successors. Since then, we make anew the semblance of their being, and place them each year at mid-sun, on the top of the mountain of thunder, and on top of the mountain of the beloved, that they may know we remember them, and that they may guard the land of our people from sunrise to sunset, and cut off the pathways of the enemy. Well, Ayawara, who was called the elder brother, and Matsalema, who was called the younger, were living on the top of the twin mountain with their old grandmother. The elder brother said to the younger on the same morning, "Brother, let us go out and hunt. It is a fine day. What say you?" "My face is in front of me," said the younger. "And under roof is no place for men," he said, as he put on his helmet of elk hide and took a quiver of mountain lion skin from an antler near the ladder. "Where are you 2 boys going now?" shrieked the grandmother through a trapdoor from below. "Don't you ever intend to stop making me worry by going abroad when even the spaces breed fear like thick war?" "Oh, grandmother," they chuckled as they tightened their bows and straightened their arrows before the fire. "Never mind us, we were only going out to hunt." Before the old woman could climb the ladder and stop them, they were skipping merrily down the rock towards the cliffs below. Suddenly, the younger brother stopped. "Ah, listen, brother. It is the cry of Arasia, and the old demon is surely abroad and to cause tears." "It is Arasia, and we must stop him. Come on quickly." "Hold on, brother. Stiffen your feet right here with patience. He is after the 2 maidens of the town of the cliffs. I saw them going to the spring as I came down. This day he must die. Is your face to the front?" said the younger to the elder. "It is. Come on," replied the elder brother as he started forward. "Stiffen your feet with patience, I say," the younger brother exclaimed again. "Know you that the old demon comes up the pathway below here? He will not hurt them until he gets them home. You know him to be a great liar and a great flatterer. That is the way the old beast catches people. If we wait here, surely we will see them come up." So, after quarreling a little, the elder brother consented to sit on a rock that overlooked the pathway and was within bowshot of the ancient demon's cave. Now, while the girls were washing their clothes, Arasia ran as fast as his old joints would allow, until the 2 girls heard his muttering and rattling weapons. "Something is coming, sister," cried the younger. Both ran away towards the rocks to hide once more, but they were too late. The old demon strode around by another way, and suddenly, at a turn, came face to face with them, glaring as he ever did with his bloodshot eyes and waving his great serrated flint knife. But as he neared them, he lowered the knife and smiled. He straightened himself up and approached the frightened ones as gently as a young man would. The poor younger sister clung to the arm of the elder one and sank moaning by her side, for the smile of the demon was as fearful as the scowl of a triumphant enemy, or the laugh of a rattlesnake when he hears any old man tell a lie and thinks he'll poison him for it. "Why do you run, and why do you weep so?" the ancient demon asked. "I know you. I am ugly and old, my fair maidens, but I am your grandfather and mean you no harm at all. I frightened you only because I felt certain you would run away from me if possible." Oh, faltered the elder sister, quickly getting over her fright. "We did not know you and were frightened by you. Come, younger sister, come," she told the younger. "Brighten your eyes and thoughts, for our grandfather will not hurt us. Don't you see?" But the younger sister only shook her head and cried. Then the demon got angry. "Ah, what are you sobbing about?" he roared, raising his knife and sweeping it wildly through the air. "Do you see this knife? This day I will cut off the light of your life with it, if you do not quiet your whimpers." "Get up, oh, do get up, younger sister," said the elder, now frightened again herself. "And it is not well that even for a short time the light of life shone through fear and sadness and be cut off altogether, for who knows where the trails that lead through the darkness of the night of death." So you know, in the speech of the rulers of the world of our ancients, a man's light was cut off when his life was taken, and when he died he came to the dividing place of life. The elder sister tried to rally the younger and rose to her feet, but she still trembled in fear. "Now, my beautiful maidens, my own granddaughters even," said the old demon once more, gently at first. "I am most glad I found you. How good are the gods! For I am a poor, lonely old man. All my people are gone." He sighed like the hiss of a wildcat. "Yonder above is my home," he said, pointing over his shoulder. "As I am a great hunter, plenty of venison is baking in my rear room and more sweet bread than I can eat. It makes me homesick to eat alone, and when I saw you and saw how pretty and gentle you were, I thought that it might be you to throw the light of your favor upon me, and go up to my home to share of my abundance and drink from my vessels. Besides, I am so old that only now and again I can get a full jar of water up to my home. So I came as fast as I could to ask you to return and eat with me." Reassured by his kind speech, the elder sister quickly said, "Of course we will go with our grandfather, and if that is all he may want of us, we can soon fill his water jars, can't we, sister?" "You are a good girl," said the old demon to the one that had spoken. Then, glaring at the younger sister, "Bring that fool along with you and come up. She will not come by herself. She has more bashfulness than sense, and less sense than my knife, because that makes the world more wise, by killing off fools." He led the way and the elder sister followed, dragging along the shrinking younger sister. The old demon kept talking in a loud voice as they went up the pathway, and telling all sorts of entertaining stories, until as they neared the rocks where Iawata and Matsalema were waiting, the two heard him and said to one another, "Ah, they come." Then the elder brother jumped up and began to tighten his bow, but the younger brother muttered, "Sit down, won't you, you fool? Arasia's ears are like bat ears, only bigger. Wait now till I say ready. You know he will not hurt the girls till he gets them out from his house. Look over there in front of his hole. Do you see the flat place that leads along to the deep chasm beyond?" "Yes, but what of it?" "There he cuts the throats of his captives and casts their bones and heads into the depths of the chasm. Do you see the notch in the rock? That is where he lets their blood flow down, and for that reason, no one ever discovers his tracks. Now, stiffen your feet with patience, I say to you, and we will see what to do when the time comes." Again they sat and waited. As the old demon and the two girls passed along below, the elder brother again started, and would have shot had not the younger brother held him back. "You fool of an elder brother, though not wiser, no. Do you not know that your arrow is lightning and we will kill the maidens as well as the demon?" Finally, the demon reached the entrance of his cave, and going in, asked the girls to follow him, laying out 2 slabs for them to sit on. "Now sit, my pretty girls, and I will get something for you to eat. You must be hungry." Going to the rear of the cave, he broke open a stone oven, and the steam which arose was certainly delicious and meaty. Soon, he brought out 2 great bowls, big enough to feed a whole dance. One of the bowls contained meat, the other a mess resembling a sweetbread pudding. "Now, let us eat," said the demon creature, sitting himself opposite the maidens, and at once diving his horny fingers and scaly hand half up to the wrist in the meat broth. The elder sister began to take bits of the food to eat it, when the younger made a motion to her and showed her with terror the bones of a little hand. The sweet bread was the flesh and bones of little children. Then, the 2 maidens only pretended to eat, taking the food out and throwing it down by the side of the bowls. "Why do you not eat?" the demon demanded, while he crammed a huge mouthful of the meat, bones and all, into his wide mouth. "We are eating," said one of the girls. "Then why do you throw my food away?" "We're only throwing away the bones." "Well, the bones are the better part," retorted the demon, and taking another huge bite by way of example, big enough to make a grown man's meal. "Ah, yes, I forgot that you had baby teeth." After the meal was finished, the old demon said, "Let us go out and sit down in the sun on my terrace. Perhaps, my beautiful maidens, you will comb an old man's hair, for I have no one left to help me now." he sighed, pretending to be quite sad. So in showing the girls where to sit down, without waiting for their assent, he settled himself in front of them and leaned his head back to have it combed. The two girls dared not disobey, and every now and then pulled out a long, coarse hair and snapped their fingers close to his scalp, which so deceived the old demon that he grunted with satisfaction every time. At last their knees were so tired by his weight upon them that they said that they were done, and the demon, rising, pretended to be greatly pleased and thanked them over and over again. Then he told them to sit down in front of him, and he would comb their hair as they had combed his, but not to mind if he hurt them a little because his fingers were old and stiff. The two maidens again dared not to disobey, and sat down as he had told them. Ugh, how the old beast grinned and glared and breathed softly between his teeth. The two brothers had watched everything, the elder getting up every now and then, and the younger remaining quiet. Suddenly, the elder sprang up. He caught the shield the Sun-Father had given him, the shield which, though made of only nets and knotted cords, would ward off the weapons of the warrior and magic of a wizard alike. Holding it aloft, he cried to his brother, "Stand ready, the time has come. If I miss him, pierce him with your arrow. Now then." He hurled his shield through the air, as swiftly as a hawk and noiselessly as an owl. It sailed across the sky straight over the heads of the maidens and settled between them and the demon's face. The shield was invisible, and the demon knew not that it was there. He leaned over as if to examine the maiden's head, opened his great mouth, and bending ever nearer, made a vicious bite at the elder one, with which both instantly fell sobbing and moaning, and crouched expecting to be immediately destroyed. But the demon's teeth caught in the meshes of the invisible shield, and howling with vexation, he began to struggle to free himself off the shield. Hiawatha drew a shaft to the point and let it fly, with thunder that rent the rocks and a rush of strong wind. The shaft sailed through the air and buried itself in the demon's shoulders, and piercing him through the thunder that had gone pealing. Swift then as a mountain sheep were the bounding light steps of the twin brothers, who, leaping to the shelf rock, drew their war clubs and soon softened the hard skull of the demon. The younger sister was unharmed aside of the fright, but the elder sister lay where she sat, insensible. "Hold!" cried Mat Salema. She was to blame then. As he scooped up the maiden in his strong arms, he laid her apart from the others, and breathing into her nostrils, revived her soon to wisdom. This day have we, through the powers, seen our father an enemy of our children of men, a beast that caused unto fatherless children, unto menless women, and unto womenless men, who thus became though his evil will. Tears and sad thoughts has this day been looked upon to the two and laid low. May the favors of the gods thus meet us ever. Thus said the two brothers, as they stood over the gasping and struggling but dying old demon. As they closed their little prayer, the maidens, who now first saw whom they had to thank for their saving, were overwhelmed with happiness, yet also shame. They exclaimed in response to the prayer, "May they, indeed, thus meet you and ourselves." Then they breathed upon their hands. The two brothers now turned to the two sisters. "Look ye upon the last enemy of men, whom this day we have had the powers given us to destroy, whom this day the Father of all, or Father the Son, has looked upon, whose light of life this day our weapons cut off, whose path of life this day our Father has divided. Not ourselves, but our Father has done this deed through us. Haste to your home in the town of cliffs, and tell your father these things, and tell him that he must assemble his priests, and teach from these our words, for we divide our paths of life henceforth from one another, and from the paths of men, no more to mingle save in spirit with the children of men. We shall depart for our everlasting home in the mountains, the one mountain of thunder, the other mounted the beloved, to guard from the sunrise to the sunset the lands of the corn priests of the earth, that the foolish among men may not break into the middle country of earth and lay it waste. Yet shall we require of our children the plumes therein we dress our thoughts, and the forms of our being, wherewith men may renew us each year at mid-sun. Henceforth 2 stars at morning and evening will be seen, the one going before and the other following, the Sun-Father, the one Iowata, and his herald the other, Matsalema, his guardian. Warriors of both fathers of men, may the trail of life be finished ere divided. Go ye joyfully henceforth. The 2 maidens breathed for the hands of the twins, and with bowed heads and a prayer of thanks, started down the pathway towards their home in the town of Cliffs. When they came to their home, the old father asked from whence they came. They told the story of their adventure and repeated the words of the beloved. The old man bowed his head and made a prayer of thanks, and cast abroad on the winds white meal of the seeds of the earth, the shells from the great waters of the world, the pollen of the beautiful flowers, and the paints of war. It is well, he said. 4 days hence I will assemble my warriors, and we will cut the plume sticks, paint and feather them, and place them on the high mountains, that through their knowledge and power of medicine, our beloved 2 warriors may take unto themselves. This was most of the story as was told to me. The ending of the story basically went on to say how the twin brothers went on to destroy the corpse of the giant demon, and they hurled his decapitated head into the sky, where it was made into a great red star, called the Great Lion Star. They also cast the demon's entrails from one end of the earth to the other, making the Milky Way. The twins then gave their grandmother a great scare with the remains of the demon, which they skinned, and she grew angry and left them. From that day henceforth, the brothers became great stars in the morning and evening, traveling behind and in front of the Sun-Father himself, their spirits hovering forever above their shrines on the 2 mountains, guiding and protecting the warriors of the people of their lands. As time moved on from the elder days, the shrines were not tended to as they should have, and they were forgotten almost entirely by the people. According to Nathaniel, the only way he thought he could kill the giant cannibal demons that now walked the land was to give offerings to the twin brothers upon their mountains, and in doing so, may cause them to lend their aid once more to us in our pursuit to kill the other demons that were now inhabiting the land. These demons were similar to the one of old. Where they came from, no one knew, but these cloaked themselves in shadow, shape-shifting when it suited them, and names ruled them. We then devised a plan for the elders and the strong men that had come to the hotel to go to the great mountains and give offerings and prayers to the twin gods at midday, in hopes they would be able to help us deliver the town from the demons and the other evil entities. They also planned to bless the land and the hotel, the heart of the town, so they called it, to ward off the evil spirits to hopefully never return. In the meanwhile, I was to wait at the hotel and keep a safe hold upon it, locking the doors and warding off the spirits where I could with herbs to protect myself and Deb as we awaited the men's return. We then parted ways to do our respective tasks. That afternoon, around midday, there was a rumbling felt throughout the town, likened to a great earthquake. Deb and I looked at each other in fear, wondering what was to come.